Hi guys, um, new recording. Um, Today is the 9th of September. If you've seen the prices of the COE as of the 8th of September, yes, gone up to, let's see, 9,689, which is fucking ridiculous because it was 9,500 a couple of weeks ago during the second bidding of August. Now, people have made a lot of jokes that it will possibly hit 10,000 before the end of this year, which at this rate, I think is going to be fucking true. And it's pissing me off because I'm middle class, yes, I can afford bikes, yes, but I'm an advocate for buying secondhand bikes, but this is going to affect people of my financial class, economic class, which is slightly the lower income middle class, um, and that's because of the way the secondhand economy in Singapore works, where people don't sell bikes based on the original COE that it was tied to. They are going to sell it based on the current prevailing rate, of course, multiplied by the number of years left on their COE. So it's affecting people like me a lot. On top of that, it's going to be affecting a lot of people in the gig economy that do deliveries via motorcycle. Uh, as it is, Foodpanda, GrabFood, they are already becoming less and less feasible for riders because the returns on their work is getting lower and lower. But this makes it even harder for them because the prices are going up on motorcycles. A $2,000 underbone like a Honda Wave is now costing people $13,000 with the COE and taxes tagged to it, which is bloody ridiculous. What kind of low income individual in Singapore can actually own a $13,000 motorcycle? I can tell you, not a single one. And they are going to be forced to buy their bikes with a loan, and that's going to cause them to pay interest on those loans that will keep them in even more poverty, because this interest is something that will eat into their earnings. The only alternative is to rent, which also falls into the same trap. In fact, it's even worse than buying a motorcycle on a loan, because rental companies need to pay their employees, they need to pay for their overhead. So there is an element of a markup there. So the only two options for this kind of people is this either they rent or they pay in smaller installments that have a huge, not really a huge, but a significant uh, margin added to their monthly payments. And it's going to be a huge issue for all of us if we don't do anything about it. Okay, for if you compare it between motorcycles and cars, you can actually see that there is a huge disparity in treatment. Okay, the reason why motorcycles have such a huge increase in prices for their COE, disregard this dip during 2019. This has absolutely nothing to do with the system or the way people bid for the COE or even any government action. Actually, it had something to do with government action, but it was not a positive one. The reason why this happened was because of a ban in 1993 to 2003 model motorcycles that led to a increase in supply of COE that once it dried up, it just shot back up anyway. But you can see there's a huge difference in treatment between the motorcycle category and the car category. Cars, if you are going to disregard, okay, the recent increase in the early 2010s that coincide with the same thing for bikes. Okay, you can see there is a there is an uh, a huge increase that is all across the board. And I think this has much to do with the huge influx of high net worth immigrants and the increasing affluence of people on this island in general that led to the rising prices. But you can see before that, there is no data before 2003 on this side, but you can see before this, cars actually had a higher price for their COE before they started going down to somewhere around 2009. And this has largely to do with the fact that they split the car COE segment into two, alongside, of course, the natural increase in quota for them. Okay, and then once we hit the price boom in the early 2010s, most of the price has mostly stayed stable. Motorcycles don't have that same treatment. We all vie for the same pool that causes the rising prices. Okay, that's reason number one. Reason number two is look at the quota for cars. Okay, cars have, for the most part, okay, increased in their population over time. Actually, I shouldn't really be showing you this. If you would like to know more about population statistics on cars, just go to the LTA website. They will show you very clearly that over time, the population of cars in Singapore, while small, they do increase over time. Whereas for motorcycles, it has stayed stagnant for the past 15 years or so, if I remember so, or remember correctly, for past 10 to 15 years at about 40,000 motorcycles. So not only do we have to vie for the same pool of COEs, we also do not have an increasing pool of COE despite an increasing number of people switching to riding motorcycles due to not being able to afford a car anymore, as well as the increasing population of Singapore itself. Whereas for cars, you don't face that kind of issue. The third most important issue with the reason why COE prices are increasing in Singapore is because of the way our bidding system works. For cars, if I remember correctly, do correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. I believe that to bid for one unit of a category A or B COE, you pay $2,000. For motorcycles, it's only $200. So for dealerships that are specializing in selling motorcycles, the overheads and the risk of them hoarding all these COEs and not being able to sell them immediately in the foreseeable future is extremely low. They can buy 10 units of this very small supply of COE, and hold them until further down the line and sell them off without really caring about the amount they bid, because the cost of the bidding process, that 9,000 is going to be passed on to their customers. Whereas for car dealerships, that $2,000 is going to eat into their overheads a lot. Not only is a car already expensive and thus generally a vehicle that's in lower demand upfront, then now you have a non-refundable deposit of 2,000 that is going to eat into your overhead costs on a month by month basis. So car dealerships are incentivized to keep their bids in check to ensure that whatever they bid on the COE is something that is acceptable to the consumer and encourage them to buy the car within the shortest period possible. Whereas for motorcycles, they don't care. They'll just hoard the COEs so that their competitors are unable to secure these certificates and are also unable to sell their bikes, while they are going to be the only ones able to do so. This is generally the doing of big dealerships in Singapore that have the capital to do so. And they are going to be the ones to be blamed for the reason why the COE prices are this high. Yes, our government ought to be blamed for sitting their ass and not doing anything about it. But let's be honest here, the real villains of our current situation are dealerships. This is the reason why I always buy secondhand, because I don't want my money to go to a dealership that possibly had a hand in the current situation that is going on right now. Okay, the ones that actually had the capital to bid really high for all the certificates, and then forcing the smaller ones to follow along because they are going to be the minority bidder. So the thing is, now that we've talked about how it's impacting the people that have to contend with buying the bikes themselves and the reasons why it's going up, I would have to say that there are a lot of experts out there that have talked about how we can actually reduce the rising prices, and a lot of them have already raised it many years ago, as early as 2010, because that's when the prices started rising. They've talked about how we really need to separate the motorcycle COE category into two: one for the 200cc and below econo bikes, and one for the luxury models. So people that are going to buy luxury bikes and are willing to pay a higher price can fight amongst themselves for that pool. People like me, and those that are less willing to pay for a high price, they can fight for possibly a larger segment on the second category, the ones that's 200cc and below, and that will possibly help out, because I believe that is the real reason why during the early 2000s the prices went down, because before this cars were all a single category until they split up somewhere around 2002, and then I believe that's when prices started dropping for cars. And I would like to hopefully it might happen to motorcycles if we do that. The other thing that I hope would really happen is if they increase the non-refundable deposit for motorcycle bids down to up to somewhere around the same as for cars, because they need to do something to incentivize the hoarding of these COEs, and incentivize dealerships to keep the total cost of motorcycles as low as possible so that people will buy. But at the end of the day, the real change has to come from us, I guess. I know some of you can't really afford to not have a motorcycle, even if it's expensive, but especially if you use it for work, like delivery riders or people like me, where I need to ride from site to site, even though a lot of my work can be done from my home office. But we really need to say screw it. If the COE is not high, we really shouldn't buy. Let them hold on to this stock of motorcycles till kingdom comes, until they realize that maybe they should put in some effort to collaborate with each other and keep the prices low, at least as far as make it a bit more manageable. About 2,000, 3,000 is still high, higher than what it was before, but at least I think most people in this day and age would think that's acceptable. But 10,000, that is absolutely ridiculous. The other thing we have to do is probably to speak to our MPs. I will probably try and speak to mine about this and ask them, could you bring this up to Parliament? Okay, because if they don't, and I don't see any change in the foreseeable future, I really don't understand why I should continue voting for a politician that is working actively against my own interests. I don't care if okay, I'm not going to say which constituency I am, but it's like most people, my constituency is still under PAP. But I mean, if the Workers' Party wins my constituency and they are going to, cut the funding to the town council, it's a small price I'm more than willing to pay, because honestly speaking, the any renovation works to my neighborhood estate is probably going to make a very marginal improvement to my life compared to this kind of thing that actually costs me, you know, quite a few tens of thousands of dollars every time I actually change bikes for my own reasons. And my reasons mostly has to do with being able to get new bikes to produce content. Because high COEs is not only affecting my ability to purchase, it's affecting the ability of my friends to purchase, it's affecting rental companies' ability to purchase bikes, from which I can draw other bikes, to make content. And you have seen in very recent years, I have stopped doing that because the rental rates on motorcycles have been so ridiculously expensive, and a lot of people that I know that are close and possibly more than willing to lend me bikes to actually make content with, they can't really get anything new for them to actually let me make content with. So yeah, that's the reason why I guess I am really pissed off about it. So please do your part, raise it to your MPs, and I hope this has opened your eyes to the situation if you've not really paid attention to it. Even though I believe most of you do, because you are part of an enthusiast crowd like me. That's why you're watching my videos. But a lot of people in Singapore that are riders are not going to be of the same level. They probably don't care, even though it legitimately does affect them very badly. They just end up sucking their thumb and living with it, even though they really ought to do something about it. So I believe like in Singapore there's like a registered motorcycle population about 40,000 or so. Although when you count into the fact that there are people that own multiple bikes, there are people that some of the bikes are owned by rental companies, there's probably only about 20,000 like individual voting owners in Singapore that can actually make their voice heard. It's going to be hard with this small amount, but we still have to try and do something about it. And if you realize that there are some of your friends that are bike owners and who possibly think it's not a big deal, do try and convince them that this is a huge issue for them down the road, even if they don't think so right now. And I hope to see you next time. I hope this news is eye-opening, and I really don't want to be making another one of these videos next year when it might possibly go up to 15,000. And it's really scary to think about that. I'll see you next time. End of this whiny run. Bye-bye.